Game 2 of a Week 5 matchup between TheBusiness and Kid versus Mord and Satchmo. Now, Mord and Satchmo building a great Zergling Roach combo in Game 1. We had a very good back and forth for a while, especially on the map control side. Eventually, Mord and Satchmo just outlasting the Protoss economy of Kid and Business, giving them the victory. And, Kid and Business going with a pretty solid build, but just unfortunately just out-macroed in the long haul. Both teams had a lot of expansions. They attempted to try and macro up as much as possible, but, in the end, Mord and Satch were able to kill more expansions than they made, and were able to pull off a victory by just kind of brute forcing some roaches. So we'll have to see how that works out on this map. Kid doing some scouting here, trying to find out which of these three bases, which of these two remaining bases the Zergs are inhabiting. And of course, Tyrador keep an interesting choice of map, arguably a pro-Zerg map because of its safe expansions. I'm guessing that is why Kid and Business chose it, since they prefer a macro game. But at the same time, they did choose a very, very good map for counterattacks, widely spread out, really a Zerg player's dream. So it'll be interesting to see which one of these two teams takes greater advantage of this, and if any of these builds are going to differ. So far, it looks like the builds are pretty much the same. It is a little too early to tell, of course. Take a look at the production tab here. We see two spawning pools going down and basically almost identical builds here for Kid and Business. Only the timing differs, with a Kid falling a little behind. He is a little bit late in the early game to kind of get a lot of his builds down, really favoring that macro build. You do see a little bit of scouting here from Mord, as he has found their base as well. And we also see Kid kind of scouting in here. He is going to look for any early expansions. So look, Mord is looking to early expand. If he does early expand, I'm guessing that Kid and Business will both try to early expand. Definitely Kid. He is a big fan of early expansions, loves to macro. It would really be a dream come true. And there it goes, Mord doing the early expansion. Now it's just a matter of Kid finding it in time. So far he has not scouted that area. He is still roaming around. He will most likely pass by that expansion on his way out. We see Mord being quickly kicked out of this base here, seeing everything he needed to see. He saw the cyber cores coming down, and he also saw that there were no forges that he could tell, so at least it was not a forge first build. And there we go, Kid has spotted this expansion here, so we should see very quickly a Nexus drop down for Kid, as he is most likely going to try to take advantage of that early expansion and go for his own macro build. We do, however, see some Zerglings coming out from Satchmo, so it looks like while Mord is going for an early expansion, Satchmo is not. And we do see Kid finally putting down this expansion here, and it looks like Satchmo may try to go for some early harassment. No, it looks like he will go for some map control instead. But definitely some early lings there from Satchmo, so it could be interesting to see if this Zerg team is doing a kind of a split approach, where one is going to macro and the other one is going to just micro it up. And looks like these Zerglings have had a change of heart, and 4 Zerglings are going to go ahead and roll in on this expansion. It is at half strength, so I don't think these 4 are going to be able to do anything about it. We do see Kid losing his Zealot there, was not on hold. We see some more Zerglings coming out, of course slow lings at that. We do see the speed almost done for Satchmo, and these lings are going to go ahead and harass this expansion a little bit. It looks like they will also get some free scouting here, as Business was not able to make it to the wall in time, and he should have been covering for his partner there. You're basically playing shortstop, and instead you went to cover third base. And we see these Zerglings kind of rolling in here, and they're not probably going to do a whole lot of damage, but they are going to at least spy all this. They have spotted this starport, though, and that is going to be very interesting. We do see a Phoenix underway. Phoenix harassment, of course, not something the Business is known for. Would have been a great surprise, but unfortunately the surprise is ruined by a handful of curious lings. We also see the Business putting a proxy pylon on these rocks, something they probably learned from watching a terrible game from Timba and Chromix, as they forgot to place a some kind of early warning detection on these rocks, and Mord and Satchmo made them pay for it by taking out those rocks and hitting them with a surprise attack. We do see some extra gas coming down here, and it looks like Satchmo will go ahead and try to whittle down these rocks as quickly as possible. 2 more lings going out, most likely to grab this last Zelnaga here. And they are going to have to make a decision quickly, as there are not a lot of units for these Protoss players. You see 2 Phoenixes now on the map, and another Phoenix underway, so definitely some Phoenix, but that's going to slow down the business and his ability to build units, which means that Kid is going to have to build more units than he's used to if he really wants to maintain anything. We see these Zerglings just rolling around here saying, hey, thanks for moving that army from defending your expansion. I'm going to go ahead and try to take out some pylons now. Looks like he will get at least one pylon. These Zerglings want to avoid direct confrontation with these Zealots here, as they are a little too strong. And it looks like that Zealot is just going to barely hold off those Zerglings from getting in there. And those Zerglings, unfortunately, a few brothers short, are going to run back and retreat from this attack. We see Business now building his own expansion. That is going to give the Protoss, assuming saturation, an edge here. Satchmo falling behind on the Harvesters at only 14 Harvesters. He's definitely falling behind. We see these Phoenixes trying to do some harassment here, but not really getting much headway. They were met with a whole lot of anti-air at Mord's base, and they've almost got the same here at Satchmo's base. These spore colonies all pop instantaneously, and they will wipe out the rest of those Phoenixes. Now, that was a very short-lived attempt at Phoenix harassment from Business. Unfortunately, that early spying on that starport allowed them to, on that Stargate, I should say, allowed them to kind of catch wind of what Business was up to and get those spores down just in time. We see Satchmo, of course, going for an expansion now. Those Phoenixes, just a huge hit to the Business early on here. We do see 8 Stalkers and 7 Zealots to their name, with 3 Roaches and 15 Lings. Not a lot. We also see some back and forth here between some Zealots and Zerglings for map control. The Zerglings, of course, holding on by their sheer numbers. We do also see lots of creep tumors being built here. And finally, some eyes from Kid. So he's going to keep an eye here, and he should detect this as the same Roach build he saw that beat him last game. So they need an answer to those Roaches. And we also see some Void Rays coming out. I have not seen early air attacks like those Phoenixes. Or we also see, sorry, interrupting here, but some Zealots trying futilely to try and whittle down these Zerglings, trying to take some map control. Going back to the air attacks, so we have not seen any early air attacks really be effective in this season. Just seems like all the members of our season are just very well versed against early air attacks. Nothing has worked out well, so I was very surprised to see the early Phoenix attack, but now I'm even more surprised to see Void Rays. Void Rays, of course, just categorically an utter failure in this season. I mean, having a Void Ray on the map is almost like, I don't know, it's almost like you might as well just have a bunch of black cats crossing your path every 5 seconds. I mean, it's just absolutely disastrous every time we've seen them be used. So it'll be interesting to see if this is just for death wall purposes or if he's going to go mass Void Ray. We do see these Void Rays just kind of sitting dormant. There we go. Starting to whittle down these Roaches. These Roaches, of course, breaking down these rocks and retreating back to the main base. They do not want a full engagement against air units, and they are not sure how many Void Rays may be hiding in this base. You see some Stalkers also coming down to try and whittle down these rocks here, and Satchmo running in some Suicide Lings to try and get an eyes. Probably wants to see how many Void Rays we got. He will be pleasantly surprised to see that there are not a lot. And what is going on? They're pulling back these Stalkers, and these Zerglings are just being allowed to just completely eradicate the mineral line here of the Business. Unbelievable. This is the second time we have seen this happen in 2 games for these teams. They've completely allowed a mineral line to be chewed apart by Zerg units here. First we saw 4 Infested Terrans take out a complete gold mineral line in game 1, and now we saw a handful of Lings basically take out half of the Business's mineral line. We saw his workers dropping to 23 from, I believe, 40. I mean, unbelievable how he just allowed that to happen. We see some dancing Void Rays here, but there's not much to dance about, as that was a very bad move there. We do see some Corruptors now, also a Hydralisk Den coming down, and some Hydras starting to back up these Roaches here. Definitely a lot. You see some DTs now. I'm not feeling the strategy here from Business and Kid. It almost feels like they're just kind of building anything and throwing at it. It's like, oh, we never build Phoenixes, let's try some Phoenixes. We never build DTs, let's try DTs. But I'm not seeing a cohesive strategy here. The armies are also split as well. You see Kid rallying over here by his expansion. It's almost like they're playing 2 separate 1v1s, and Business, fortifying these rocks here. But in reality, they need to have their units kind of like in this general area here, just because there is no reason for them to believe that somehow they're going to be blindsided over here on this side. We do see Mort also going for a way off expansion here, neglecting this gold, probably not wanting to deal with those. We just see a huge army though, just a monstrously huge army. Those DTs now, are working against them, as it has forced Mord and Satch to build overseers, which will allow them to not only detect DTs, but also all the observers that they may use to try and spy on them. See this army kind of moving in here. They do not have visibility on this army. The loss of that observer does not allow them to see this army coming in here. So it's going to be very interesting. And there we go. The army is rolling in. Meanwhile, we do see a handful of zealots from Kid being dispatched towards that expansion, trying to see what's going on over there. Unfortunately, though, the army is split. And we have the Protoss armies just completely split. This is a huge mistake here. And by the time Kid gets here, business will be completely eradicated. And these Hydralisk and Roach army are a great counter. And that early DT attack, unfortunately, forcing the hand for Overseers, so they will be not effective at all here. We do see Colossi kind of sitting off here to the side for Kid. He needs to be in here, but at this point it is completely futile. As you see this enormous Zerg ball just kind of decimating everything in its path. This is not looking good at all. Kid's 4 Zealots did manage to take out that expansion, but Satchmo's Zerglings are going to make sure that that victory is short-lived, and they are just completely steamrolling the business, taking out everything in their path. Kid does not really have much to answer for in light of this. You know, they did not take advantage of this gold. They really took too long to figure out what they wanted to build. You know, they kept trying Phoenixes, you know, Dark Templars. They just seemed a little just split on their strategy here. It's like they took too long to figure out what to build, and they were basically facing the exact same army as before, just with a few extra Hydralisks added. And unfortunately, Kid's army is not going to be enough, as this Zerg army is just kind of like steamrolling through everything being thrown at him. Business, of course, very crippled at this point. Not much for him to use. You see Kid coming in here with some late Zealots. A handful of Satchmo's Mutalisks just completely whittling down Kid's workers here. And there's the GG from Kid, as the second game is going to go to Mord and Satchmo, which will keep them with only one loss. Kid and Business continue their downward spiral, as they are completely being outclassed here by their Zerg opponents. I mean, they really need to figure out a strategy here that's going to work. You know, this second game, I feel like was just played even worse than the first one. Just silly mistakes, but even worse, just no cohesive strategy. They played as two separate members. They did not play as a solid team as Mord and Satch did. They did not rally units to the right places. They did not try to defend key locations, and they just allowed the Zergs to just kind of whittle them down and engage them one at a time, and it cost them this game. This would be a very costly loss for them, as it basically continues their iffy playoff position here. And you know, Kid and Business coming into this season were favored to make it to the finals, and now they're fighting to hold on to a playoff spot. So they really need to have some tough talks amongst themselves, determine what strategies they want to go with here, try to get some kind of cohesive build action going on. We'll have to see how the rest of the season plays out for them, but a good victory for Mort and Satchmo, and that will definitely continue to solidify their second place standing.